Coming into Christmas, I think the question whether Canadians want an election at Christmas or they want $250 and a cut to the GST.
Oh my God, did he just say that? We said in our previous video that the NDP may actually be showing some evidence of strategic thinking. Well, we take it all back. They are as dumb as a pile of rocks, except the rocks make better decisions.
Let's take a look.
Don Davies is the NDP finance critic, and he joins me now. Mr. Davies, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Great to be with you, David.
So your leader today said the NDP fought for this, but also called it a liberal letdown. Square that circle for me, Mr. Davies.
Well, first of all, to put it in context, we all know that Canadians are really struggling from coast to coast. Working families, middle-class families are skipping meals to feed their kids. We all know that people are having a shock price at the grocery stores, and people are struggling with their monthly bills. That's why last week, Jagmeet Singh announced a comprehensive GST reduction on a wide variety of life's essentials. So these are things, David, that people can't avoid, things like your home heating, your monthly internet and cell bills, and then things like children's clothing and food and such. So we announced that we would take the GST off that permanently last week.
Right.
So the announcement today is the government obviously caving into that to some degree and agreeing to take the GST off a number of those things, not all of them, and temporarily. So while it will provide relief to a lot of people on a temporary basis, it doesn't go far enough, but we do want to make sure that the relief that it is presented in the announcement today goes to people, and we'll continue pressing for more.
Okay, so it doesn't cover the things you wanted on the monthly bills in terms of home heating costs and these sorts of things, which has been a persistent demand from the NDP. It does cover wine and beer. And look, I like a cold beer and a glass of wine as much as the next person, but are those essentials that need a tax holiday when it's the more fundamental day-to-day, life essentials that you talk about in terms of food and things and heat that are not getting any kind of relief in this?
Yeah, it's an interesting list of items that the Liberals want to take the GST off, and again, only for 60 days.
Yep.
We have to remember that, this is 2 months of relief, whereas the NDP was proposing permanent GST elimination on products. For us, it's about the life's essentials. It's about things like, again, your home heating bills, and of course we're about to enter the winter season in many parts of the country. It's about the cellular and internet bills that really are now a staple of Canadian life. It's really not avoidable. And again, things like food and children's clothing are the things that we think are the types of purchases that Canadians really need relief on. The fact that the Liberals have broadened it to include things like alcohol and restaurant meals for 60 days, I think will bring some relief. It's not what was in our proposal, but I think it will bring some relief to people, especially in the holiday season when people are getting together and they're celebrating things like cider and mulled wine and
Sure.
beer and liquor and stuff. I'm not going to object to that for 2 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, the NDP. So when we saw this, it became plain as day to me that there was no negotiation on this whatsoever. So Jagmeet Singh announces in his bid to be Prime Minister, I'll wait till you all laugh, that they are going to be permanently taking the GST off of all of this stuff.
If they get power.
Yeah. Which is fine. Whatever, it's something. It's a policy stance. Fine.
It's a relief for Canadians, but it does mean that the government needs to make up that taxpayer money somewhere else.
Right. So then the Liberals saw that and they said, "Hey, we may find a way to get out of this question of privilege. Why don't we steal Aaron O'Toole's idea back from 2021? We won't talk about how we told them it was a stupid idea and they'd have to cut childcare to actually get it done. But we'll steal that idea and we'll say to the NDP, hey, if you help us get rid of the question of privilege, let's put this through, but we'll only do it for 2 months. And basically what they did is they said, and by the way, here's the list. And the NDP said, oh, well, that's not what we asked for, but okay.
Did I not predict this yesterday? In our recording yesterday, I think the video actually aired, well, I guess Thursday, but I'm pretty sure I predicted this when we were discussing things Wednesday night. And I said that the NDP was just going to go along with it and make themselves look like utter fools because, again, they were the ones that voted with the Bloc and the Conservatives to have this motion of privilege. They're the ones extending it with concurrence motions. And now they're helping the NDP, or pardon me, the NDP are helping the Liberals pause it or stop it. I'm not quite sure. I don't think anybody really knows what the procedure is at this point because this has never happened before. But they're going to help the Liberals get this GST holiday legislation through the House. And it's not what they wanted. This is like pharmacare all over again. It's not what we wanted. You know, we're banging our chests about what we want and what Canadians deserve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll settle for what the Liberals are saying anyways.
Well, and remember, you know, there's going to be no deals with the Liberals. We've torn up the agreement, yada, 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 yada. And this sounds like a bit of a deal. Now, the NDP have committed they will not vote on a motion of closure with the Liberals to get rid of the SDTC scandal and the question of privilege, which is pretty bizarre because they say, well, the Conservatives are filibustering. Well, you're helping them do it. Let's not talk about that. So that's basically where the NDP are. And I had said, well, you know, maybe there's some strategic thinking here. No. Yeah. And as I said, I would be surprised if they had half a brain. But, you know, turns out it's a vacant cavity in there. There is nothing there. So this is what they're doing. And Don Davies admits, well, you know, it was an interesting list that they have. So you didn't even try to negotiate? Like, no. This is the thing. Like, no. They just take the scraps from the Liberals.
Right. And this time they're handing over their help for what? Before, it was to... Essentially, it was to keep Parliament running so that Jagmeet Singh could get his pension. And then they got the scraps of dental care and pharmacare, which, again, was not what they asked for. They wanted single payer universal pharmacare, and they got 2 classes of medications, or for two illnesses,
They basically got the worst drug benefit plan anyone has ever seen. Yeah,
like if your employer came to you and said, yeah, we have this amazing drug benefit plan, but it's only good for birth control and diabetes medications and only certain types of diabetes medications.
And you say, well, I'm not diabetic and I already have a family and I don't care about birth control.
Right. So what are you going to give me? That's not a great plan at all, right?
So that was Don Davies. This is just the appetizer, folks. So the real stupidity comes into play from a normally intelligent NDP MP who conducts himself very well in committee. I don't know what happened here, but Taylor Bachrach went on CTV and I don't know, he's given Gerritsen a run for his money at this point. Take a look at this.
I want to bring in Mr. Bachrach, and I have to ask you quite bluntly, why is your party supporting the Liberals on this when your leader, Mr. Singh, was explicit that it did not go nearly as far as you would like to see it go? You wanted it to cover more stuff and you wanted it to be permanent. Why do you continue to support the Prime Minister and his party when you say this falls so short?
Well, thanks, Vashi. First of all, like we are hearing from Canadians, there's a broad swath of the Canadian public that's struggling to make ends meet. And last week we were up demanding that the government take the GST off a whole host of essentials, including home heating, kids' clothes, phone and internet bills. It appears the Prime Minister has caved to that demand and put forward, in classic Liberal fashion, put forward a lesser offer to Canadians.
If it's a lesser offer, why are you helping them achieve it?
Well, and how is that caving into the demand?
Right, if you just held out a little bit longer, because the Liberals do not want the House seized. It's them losing legislation days. So if you held out a little longer, maybe they would come around to what you're trying to offer Canadians, which is GST off things like cell phone bills and internet bills.
Well, I think what we've seen from the NDP is there is a grand total of 0 long-term thinking here. It's, they take what they can get immediately and then run with it. Same as Justin Trudeau, by the way, when he was talking in the question period, when he says, well, a responsible government does what's best for Canadians at the time. And they don't consider the long-term implications of this.
Yeah.
So here's some long-term implications of this potential bill, which doesn't even exist yet. So they want to give all provinces a break on basically all the sales tax, GST and HST. First they were saying GST and everyone was only saying GST. Everyone was confused. And then now they're saying HST. And that will potentially cost around, $1.6, $1.7 billion. And then they want to give all Canadians a $250 check, and that's going to cost around $4.6 billion.
But it's not even all Canadians. It's all Canadians who, I believe, filed a tax return or
in 2023.
Were employed in 2023, I think is what they're saying. And you have to be under a certain amount. I believe that amount is $150,000 per year, which, as has been criticized on some of the other newscasts, it is a very high threshold for that. And then people like me who are stay-at-home moms and didn't earn an income last year, well, then I guess we're SOL. Same with seniors who their income may have been OAS or CPP. What are they going to do, right? Like, this is the most ridiculous way, in my opinion, that they could have announced this, that they could have done this.
Well, it's even worse, actually, because the $150,000, that's not gross, okay? That's not... your gross salary or your gross earnings were 150. That's net.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
That's even worse. So if you made like $300,000 and were able to use tax deductions, RSP contributions, everything like that to get it down to 150, you qualify.
That's insane.
Absolutely, it's insane. And this is one of the questions that the Liberals and the NDP keep getting asked. Okay, so if you're so concerned about the people who need this most, why wouldn't you give, say, $400 to people in the bottom two tax brackets?
Right.
And don't worry about everybody else. But it's about vote buying. That's why. So it's about 18 million Canadians that actually apply to this. And by the way, it doesn't apply to seniors.
No, that's what I said, which is insane. I mean, you would imagine that seniors who are on a fixed income like OAS or CPP would need help more than people who are earning a net of $150,000 per year.
You would think.
Like, this is nuts.
So, seniors that are still considering voting Liberal, this is Justin Trudeau who has your back. He's actually taking your tax money and giving it to people who need it less than you do. So that's something else to consider.
And this is an important thing that you just touched on, is this is our tax money that they're trying to bribe us with.
Right. Like, well,
and not even all of us.
It's actually, I think of it differently. It's even worse. It's our future tax money. And what I mean by that is they're already in debt and in the deficit by around $45 billion. They were supposed to be 38, but they're at 45 billion. So they've borrowed, or on track to have to borrow, $45 billion to pay for the budget this year. So with this, they want to borrow another $7 billion on top of that. So they want to print $7 billion in order to actually pay for this. So what does that mean? That means in the future, your tax dollars and your children's tax dollars and their children's tax dollars are going to be actually paying for this stupid initiative that they're trying to do now and classify it as, well, we're helping Canadians. This is what we're talking about here. Now, some of the other things that we're talking about is this $250. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think about it, it's not $250. We actually checked with the Bank of Canada inflation calculator. So before Justin Trudeau and his Liberal NDP coalition skyrocketed inflation, this $250 in 2019 would have actually been $300.
Wow, that's a lot to lose in, 5 years?
4 years, yeah.
Wow,
so
that's gross.
It's ridiculous the amount that the Liberal and NDP government has actually devalued our money. And that is the effect of inflation. And this is what Pierre's been talking about this whole time, right? He keeps talking about his bread example. So this is something that people, have to take into consideration when you're looking at this whole thing. Now, let's take a look at the rest of this interview with Taylor Bachrach.
But at the same time, what they've put forward will help people. It's going to put money in their pockets and is going to reduce the cost of some essentials for a period of time. We would make it permanent. We would do more. We would go further. But our commitment, when we ended the agreement, was to take everything that the government brings forward in the House on a case-by-case basis, look at the merits, and vote in the best interest of Canadians. So we're coming into the Christmas season. Families are going to be stretched. Here's something that's going to give them some help. I think it would be irresponsible not to support that and get them the help that they need.
But aren't you just also sending the message to Canadians that if the Liberals do a tiny bit of what the NDP likes, then you're willing to keep them in power? And isn't that a difficult message for Canadians to reconcile with?
This isn't about sending messages. It's not about the kind of political games that Michael was talking about. This is about getting help to Canadians. It's that simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, the NDP seem to think that every political action is not being watched by Canadians and therefore not sending a message. So this isn't about sending a message. Well, it doesn't matter, Taylor, because it is sending a message.
Yeah, it's sending a message that the government wants a Band-Aid instead of an actual proper fix. I mean, taking the GST, or in provinces with HST like Ontario, off of this list of goods for 2 months, if it's GST in your province and you spend an average of $2,000 on these items, you'll only save $100. Now, it's nothing to scoff at, but it's not this huge big save that they think it is. If you live in a province with HST like Ontario, it's 13%, so you'd save $260 on a bill of $2,000 worth of goods. Again, nothing to sneeze at, but it's not like this big, huge save. It's also only a one-time deal. I mean, 2 months and then it's done and then it's back to usual. So I always say, is $100 in my pocket better than it was before? Sure, but it's my money that they're giving back to me. Why don't they just not take it in the first place, and then we won't have this slew of problems that we do?
So people are watching this. They're looking at Christmas coming up. They're looking at their paychecks and the cost of things in the store, and they're stressed. This is what they're telling me. They're like, we're worried. We're not going to be able to make ends meet. We're not going to be able to put presents under the tree. We're not going to be able to pay our bills. This is an incredibly stressful time of year for people. And so if the government is willing to put something on the table that lowers people's bills, that gives them some of that relief at such a critical time of year, how can we say no to that?
Here's another consideration. And I thank Connie for actually pointing this out. What is next week, everybody?
Black
Friday. What point of the year do the majority of Canadians do their Christmas shopping? A, before December 14th, and B, a lot of it is done on Black Friday. Why? Because everything's on sale.
Yeah, because it was a big thing down in the States, and a lot of Canadians, my family included, used to go down to the States for Black Friday deals. The Canadian retailers saw that and went, maybe we should do that up here too, and keep more Canadians at home to spend their money, and that's what happened.
100%. So now Canada does Black Friday. So what good is this for Christmas presents when most people are going to be taking advantage of Black Friday to actually buy those presents now? Because here's the thing. If you can buy something that's 20%, 30% off now, well, you're going to buy it now.
Yeah, are you going to do that and buy it on Black Friday, rather than wait an extra 2 weeks and get 5% off for GST?
Or if it's HST, which we'll get back to, by the way, up to 13%. So, this is just completely ridiculous in terms of what's being thought out here.
Because today, actually, in a way, Mr. Singh did. He said, when I'm prime minister, I will make it permanent.
Sure, absolutely.
He could be prime minister if your party was willing to force an election, but you're unwilling to because you don't think he's going to be prime minister, I think.
Whoa.
Oh, burn. Atta girl. Very nice.
That was amazing. And because she's right. The implication is that, well, you're obviously confident he's not going to be prime minister. Otherwise, you would be going to an election.
Well, and I've said it in the past, if the NDP think that Jagmeet Singh is going to be the next prime minister, why don't they call an election, campaign really, really hard, and hopefully they'll get everything that they're asking for.
Yeah, make it happen.
Right.
But guess what? They obviously know he's not going to be prime minister, so what's the point?
Coming into Christmas, I think the question whether Canadians want an election at Christmas or they want $250 and a cut to the GST.
Oh my God, did he just say that?
Ladies and gentlemen,
He can't be serious. He said that out loud.
So Canadians want $250.
More than they want an election. You know what, Backrack? I would pay $250 to get an election. Let me tell you that.
You know, I think I know a lot of people that would pay. You know, I want to know how many people would pay. So, you know, we're going to put a poll on our YouTube community and on Twitter. I want to know, would you pay $250 to actually have a Christmas election this year?
And I'm not talking about not receiving $250. I mean paying $250 out of your pocket right now.
Yeah, I'll sell all my crap.
Election.
I'll sell all my crap
Right.
and get $250, and I would pay that.
This is disgusting, though. These NDP think that, you know, we'll placate the Canadians by giving them $250.
Right.
That's how we can buy them off with $250, you peasants.
On things like kids' clothes.
Do you
and
really
kids'
think they're
toys.
willing to trade the opportunity to get rid of a prime minister that your leader says is a total failure for $250?
There's absolutely going to be an election, and Canadians are going to have a chance to voice their opinion at the polls. But listen, we're dealing with a very immediate and very real crisis of affordability for families across the country. And so our commitment that we made was that we would look at everything that the government brings forward on a case-by-case basis, and we would vote in the best interests of Canadians. Now, our leader has been very clear that an NDP government would do much more.
Okay, so I don't think Taylor Backrack was watching Mark Garrison yesterday. So remember, foot up to the knee, up to the thigh, probably up to his neck is now in his mouth.
God bless Michael Barrett for sitting there and just, poker face.
He's probably inside. He's just like, oh my God, please keep talking, Taylor.
I'm going to clip that for later.
This is
Wow.
insane. Like, dude. And you could tell Taylor was like, oh crap,
Yeah,
what did I just say?
But you know what? Sometimes when they say things off the cuff like that, that's what they're really thinking.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like they just let it out and they don't mean to. It's no filter. And I think that shows us what the NDP are thinking about this, is that we can stave off an election, we can distract everybody, we can get our leader his pension with $250.
Well, and again, ladies and gentlemen, the NDP purportedly stand with the working class, stand, with unions. Well, guess what? The majority of Canadians in that demographic want an election, just so you know. Now, let's move on to the elephant in the room that nobody, and I mean nobody's talking about, is that when it comes to this tax cut, there are certain provinces that this is very easy for the government to do. So if your province only has a general sales tax, like Alberta is one of them, Northwest Territories, I think Yukon, these provinces, sure, very easy. The government puts through this bill, off it goes. GST's down to zero. However, there are provinces like Ontario and Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick that have a harmonized sales tax, and we've been getting emails about this. Now, we were initially confused as to what this was referring to, because initially the Liberals were only saying GST. Then Justin Trudeau put out a tweet saying HST as well. Okay, well, here's the onion. In order to do that, they need the agreement of the provinces, because there is an agreement that is protected by legislation that the federal government and the provinces enter into an agreement for this harmonized sales tax. So in Ontario, the government gets 5% of that, and then the province takes 8% of that. Now, it's all collected by the CRA, and then it's kind of handed back out. But here's the thing. Justin has said, we're taking the HST off. Well, hold your horses. I don't think you've talked to Ontario. I don't think you've talked to Prince Edward Island. I don't think you've talked to New Brunswick. Now, Andrew Furey has come out and said, "Oh, we're gonna match that." And I was confused when I initially heard that, but now I understand. So Andrew Furey has said, "Fine, the province is going to take it off as well." But
what about everyone else?
Yeah, you can't make these announcements, A, prior to the bill even being passed, and B, before you've even talked to the provinces. And he wonders why all the premiers are pissed at him.
Well, the bill hasn't even been written yet, and there's so much confusion because are they going to take just the 5% of the federal tax off the HST and still give the provinces their cut? They're 8% in Ontario, at least. We'll use Ontario as the example. Are they going to charge 0% HST at the till? And then the province is expected to just suck it up and not get their portion? What's going to happen here?
And this is the thing. So when people ask us, what does this mean? Our answer is, we don't know because we have to see the bill.
Yeah, it's not out yet, and there is a lot of confusion surrounding the HST. So unfortunately, it's going to be a we'll have to wait and see type answer.
And we were actually going back and forth with Franco Terrazzano of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and this is what he had to say. Quote, "Canadians and businesses can't be faulted for having questions about how this tax cut will impact them, given the government's vague information and the complexity of Canada's tax code. I've seen a number of policy experts raising questions following the federal government's announcement." So these are people that review policy for a living, and they don't even know what's going on because this has been so vague. And of course, this is what Justin Trudeau has been doing for the last 10 years. He manages the country from a podium, from a photo op, and it just expects everybody else to figure it out.
Yep.
And we wonder why Canada is in the state that it is. So as we get more details on this, we will be following that and distributing that information as it becomes available. But they're still not clear how they're even going to pause the question of privilege. They're not clear how the HST is even going to happen. And I think Canadians are unclear, what money do we even expect to save?